All right. Peace and greetings, YouTubers. So, welcome to another edition of In the News. Can we take a second to talk about the greed and the deceit that exists among some people? I know you all have seen this story. This is a story about the couple and the homeless guy and the GoFundMe scandal. So, long story short, there was a couple that posted a GoFundMe about an experience that they had. And in this experience, they are driving. Somehow they get stranded in Philadelphia. And they are at their wits' end. They don't have any money. They don't know what they're going to do. And then a hero came along with the strength to carry on. I'm only saying that because Mariah just had a CD come out. But anyway, the hero is this homeless guy who comes and he gives them their last $20. The last $20 he has. And they're so moved by his act of kindness that they're like, you know what? We want to do the same thing for him. And so they go and they start this GoFundMe and they tell this story. And I mean, it pulls on the heartstrings of 14,000 people. And those 14,000 people donate over $400,000 to this homeless man. And of course, the red carpet is rolled out for the couple for doing such a nice gesture. And I'm sure, I don't know, they probably got the key to the city and an invite to the Ellen show and probably a free discount at Starbucks or something. And, you know, everything was great. All was well. And, you know, there's just really great people out there. Society is on the move to greatness. And then the homeless guy was like, wait a minute, I didn't get any of my money yet. So let's go to court. And so out of nowhere, the tide changes and everybody's like, wait a minute, you didn't give the people that money? How dare you? Oh my goodness. And so everybody's flipping out and the court's ordering that, you know, they need to give the money to the individual. And at this point, they didn't spend half of it. They ain't even got the $400,000 anymore. And then more comes out. Turns out that none of this even happened. This was all a scam. The three of them got together to conjure up a plan where they would pretty much get into the emotional appeals of society with a really heart-wrenching story about everything and go from there. And the homeless man was supposed to get $75,000 out of the deal. And then, of course, I'm sure they didn't think they were going to get $400,000 total. So he was like, listen, $75,000 is a small piece of the pie. I think I deserve more because at this point, with this story, I'm David Ruffin and y'all are the Temptations, okay? Ain't nobody coming to see you, Otis. So y'all gonna have to raise it up, okay? Like, listen, I'm Diana Ross. Y'all are the Supremes. And not Florence Ballard and Mary Wilson. I'm talking Jean Terrell and Cindy Birdsong, the ones that came later. So y'all need to give me a larger cut. And nobody was really budging. And so now it's turned out that everybody's in on this scheme. And so now they're facing 5 to 10 years. And I'm like, oh, okay. You see how where foolishness will get you? But then there's more because now the girlfriend has come out and said, oh no, I wasn't in on this. It was my boyfriend that lied about everything and he coerced me into doing this. And I was scammed too. So the couple is broken up and everything. And I'm like, now listen, look where this got all three of y'all. So you're all facing 5 to 10 years. You two are no longer together. Nobody feels bad for the homeless man. And y'all got to pay back this money that y'all installed. Have fun with that. You know, this is why you don't include everybody in all of your plans. Even if it's something that's a good plan or something that's not terrible like what they put together, sometimes you don't need to include everybody. You don't need to let everybody know what your moves are. That makes me think of the Tina Turner movie. You remember in the movie when she finally had the strength to leave Ike the first time? And there's that scene where she's on the phone. And guess what she's doing? Telling somebody what she's getting ready to do. On the phone with her mama. Mom, it's me. You know, I just need a place to go for a few days, mama, please, don't tell Ike. And of course, unfortunately, Ike has already bought out the mom. He done bought the mom a house and everything. And what do you think happened? You remember it gets to that scene and the Greyhound bus is at the rest stop. And who's already at the rest stop waiting for Tina? Waiting for Anime. Ike Turner with all his boys. And I'm like, dang, you done messed up the plan, mom. Thanks. Then the worst part that always got me is you see Ike Jr. getting in the car and Tina's having like a flip out. She's like, you know, don't get in the car. Don't get in the car. Don't get in the car. And everything like that. And because Ike Jr. got in the car and she didn't want to leave him, she ended up getting in the car and they all went back home. And I was like, dang, Tina, not to be that person who it may just be a little tiny bit terrible, but Ike Jr. wasn't even her child. That was Lorraine's child. Remember the movie when Lorraine dropped off the two kids and sped off? That was Lorraine and Ike's baby. I'm like, see, people can be so nurturing that you're willing to take on and love on other children because you want them to be well off. And see, look what happened. You telling your mama everything and look what your mama did. Dang. That movie, that scene gets me every time. I'm like, if you just got on the bus with the other kids, Ike Jr. would have been okay with his mom and his dad. He would have just went back to Lorraine. But it is what it is. Anyway, moving on. Deceit at its finest. Don't tell everybody what you're doing. What y'all doing? Anyway, yeah, throw the book at all three of them. And then I didn't even know that blackfishing was a thing. You know, when some of you had asked me for my opinion about it, I thought blackfishing was something where maybe there had been some racist people going around and trolling black people. That's what I thought it was. I didn't know it was people on social media pretending to be black or pretending to be something other than white. I was like, this is a thing. And so, long story short, you have a lot of white women who identify as social media influencers. And by the way, I want y'all to know I can't stand the usage of social media influencer because the context and the image and everything, it just doesn't go with what I thought it would be. When I thought of social media influencer, I thought it would be people who put out content that encourage and inspire people to go do things that make their lives better. Like, it would be people who have pages and it's like, go ahead and take that knee and propose to that girlfriend you've had for 2 years. Go ahead and get that extra degree. Go ahead, apply for that job. You go ahead and start that business. I thought that would be like social media influencing, but apparently it's people who pretty much just encourage people to go and buy products. I was like, well, can't y'all call that like social media marketeers or something? But anyway, so you have these social media influencers, white women, who pretty much dress themselves up as black women. They go, they put on, they do all the tanning and put on the makeup and the this and the that, and they get the unique hairstyles and the toothbrush and do the baby hairs on the side, and they get the lip fillers and then the injections, and then they take pictures and stand behind 30 filters, and then some of them have gone and got plastic surgery and got bigger breasts or bigger hips and different things like that, and so they're pretty much pretending to be something that they're not. And I'm like, what's in the water, first of all? Because can we be honest? I'm not even going to post any of their stuff because I don't even want to give them a platform. But all the ones that I've gone to look up, they all look crazy to me. It's not even attractive. And to the people that kept saying they were being fooled, they thought they were black. I don't know what you were looking at, but none of them even look black to me at all. Like, you can clearly tell they just have on too much of whatever it is that they have on. And another thing I found interesting, because like I've said many times, folks always want to be black without the oppression. Folks always want to, go ahead and take a page out of blackness and just take certain pieces of it. And that's exactly what they've done. When you look at many of them, they've literally gone and taken their favorite elements of blackness and applied it to themselves. Not the whole package, just the bits and pieces. And when you look at how many of them are portraying themselves, they all kind of are going for the same look. They're going for the Janae Eichel look, the A. Marie look, who's another? Mila J. That's the look they're going for. You don't see any of them trying to look like a Regina Hall or Naomi Campbell. You don't see any of them trying to look like who else can I think? Nia Long. So they're even showing you what element of blackness they want to be like, which in my opinion is already anti-black in itself, because literally there's only one type of blackness that they're attracted to, and that's more so the racially ambiguous biracial element and those who come off to appear somewhat exotic, which there can be another whole conversation just about the word exotic and the meanings behind that and whether that equates to beauty, but that'd be another conversation. And so you're even seeing that, and so it's like they're literally picking and choosing the bits and pieces that they want, because you don't see too many of them with the 4C hair textures that they're trying to copy. By the way, I just learned what 4C was this week on Twitter. I didn't know that was they got all kind of terms and everything. Y'all tell me what I got. I don't know what I have, so I'm gonna learn that for later. But yeah, you don't see them going and getting all that, and I'm like, when I tell you I'm tired of people trying to build themselves up at the expense of black people, it's ridiculous. Because here's the thing, can we be honest? If they got on this whole black get up and then they're even changing their names to all these little exotic nicknames and all this other crap, I don't know, I'm gonna just make up one, Dynasty. And so now Dynasty's running around. I guarantee you this, Dynasty's driving her car at 2 a.m. and she gets pulled over. I bet you she has some wet wipes to wipe all that crap off her face before the police get to the window. I bet you Dynasty, when she applies for that job, is not using Dynasty on that resume. I bet Dynasty changes right back to Jessica. I bet you Dynasty, when she goes and does that interview, she's not going to have all that crap on her face. She's going to come in there blonde hair, blue-eyed, sitting up straight, all right, smelling like strawberries and Starbucks. And so it's like people are literally playing dress up with our experience. And that's the other thing. Like, these people, it's not like they're standing for anything. You can say what you want about somebody like Rachel Dolezal, who we've had many conversations on her, but at least, even though she went about it all the wrong way, at least she somewhat stood for something. These people, oh no, you just saw all this voter suppression and everything going on with the past election, and I can guarantee you all of them were silent. You know what they were doing? They were taking pictures and all right, everything else like that, with all of the incidents that's taking place as far as black people being under attack financially and economically and with the schools and everything. They're not saying anything about that, because that's the element of blackness they don't want anything to do with. They just want the look. They just want to look fancy. They just need some likes. And see, this is what happens when you have people on social media who build entire platforms and build brands around something that truly does not represent who they are, when they're pretty much selling you something that is not them, where it's inauthentic, because their brand gets so big, they have nothing to offer but that. And so now they're stuck in that. Because, I'm going to just use Dynasty again. Dynasty can't go back to being Jessica, because she's built a following off of being Dynasty. So when they find out that Dynasty actually looks like Jessica, they go, wait a minute, something doesn't add up. And so, it's an issue. And it even ties into the next story, which I really don't want to talk about, but this whole Iggy Azalea and the little crazy girl from Dr. Phil, I forgot her name, little white girl she went on Dr. Phil, cussed her mom out, got famous, got a record deal. She gets rewarded for being a terrible person, and black children are vilified for just existing. But, her. I'm not even going to give her a platform. I'm not even going to talk about it too much. But literally, even with her existence, they're talking about her. I guess she threw a drink at Iggy at the club or something. And I'm like, well, what's a 15-year-old doing at the club in the first place? But even with her, the image that she puts out, which is what I have a problem with, is she's taking the extremities and the elements of blackness in which she would like to associate herself with, and not the full package. And so she's taken all of these extreme elements of blackness, which in my opinion are not blackness. It's the image that's put on black people as far as being violent, being the bad bee, ready to fight at the drop of a dime. All the extremes she's taken. And as she does that and builds a platform, unfortunately for actual black children who come from certain environments and have to deal with certain situations, she makes it worse for them because people continue to push that stereotype on them. With her doing all this, it's not going to push the stereotype on white girls being violent, white girls being disrespectful, white girls causing problems. It doesn't do anything to them. It goes right back to the girls who live in all the different neighborhoods who are pretty much vilified for existing. And so that's why I have an issue with somebody like the Bhad. What is her name? Whatever her name is, don't matter. But I have an issue with her. And I have an issue with the record label that signed her. I have an issue with everybody who's given her a platform and celebrated her. And the fact that she's on all these different media shows and radio interviews. And I'm like, are y'all serious? And apparently she's a rapper too. And I'm just like, you know what? It's so interesting how y'all reward people for the same things that other people are vilified for. The same things that stop people from getting jobs. These corporations, they just see the wrong name in the resume and say, no, we don't even want that smoke. Throw that one in the trash. These schools, everything works against us. And somebody like her gets to climb the platform and get rich off foolishness. Just ridiculous. Because even when black people get shot and killed by police, or black people get killed under some crazy incident, the first thing people love to go and do is tear apart the image. I will always remember that article that came out after Mike Brown died, and you saw that Mike Brown was no angel, or Michael Brown was no angel. I'm like, you see what I'm talking about? She gets rewarded, he's dead, and he gets vilified. That's what goes on. So those are issues, and I think that's why it makes it hard for people like the person in my next story, the Landers Holley guy. Those images, it makes it harder for other people. So let's get into Landers Holley. So Landers Holley is, I hope I'm saying his name right, forgive me if I'm saying it wrong, but he's a freshman at Virginia Tech. And he had an extremely high ACT score, good grades, got in. NCAA and some of the folks at the school don't think he actually took the test properly. They think he cheated. They just said his score is way too good to be true. So they want him to actually go and retake it in order to be eligible to play. You see what I'm talking about? Like this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, the fact that there's an idea that black people just can't possibly be that smart. So somehow they had to cheat. Never mind that, his parents probably had him raised in an environment where school was important. And if you really want to make it, you're going to have to not only be a good basketball player, but be a good student. And so this kid has worked really hard and done all these great things. And now you want to accuse him of cheating on something like the ACT. First of all, can we go back to the days when we all went and took that SAT or ACT? You sit in this room for 3, 4, 5 hours. They take your cell phone, if you were around when cell phones existed by the time you were in high school. They take the cell phone. There's all kind of regulations. There's no way to really sit and cheat on something like an ACT. Plus, it's too long of a test. Who has that kind of energy? But it's insulting because I can guarantee you there's a bunch of idiots that play lacrosse at Virginia Tech in the same realm who have much lower scores and who get rewarded and got full out scholarships and everything like that. Or the same element where you have a lot of people who pretty much get into these schools just solely because they can play and everything else doesn't add up. And then when you finally get a student who has all the right elements, the good grades, the great scores, great player, doesn't get in any kind of trouble, all around great student, that's who you want to go and you want to terrorize. And that's why when it comes to the NCAA, the level of respect I have is so low. And I told y'all before, I watched that student athlete documentary. Ever since I've seen that, man, because that story about the guy who... he came in as a walk-on. Was it Virginia Tech too? He might have been Virginia Tech. I can't remember the school. Or Baylor, one of them schools. But he came on the football team as a walk-on. And so he made the team, but because he was a walk-on, he didn't get a scholarship. And he didn't have enough money to pay for housing. So somebody found out and was like, oh, well, you can stay at our house. And of course, NCAA rules, you're not allowed to take bribes, not allowed to take money. So he ends up getting in trouble, disqualified from NCAA everything, isn't eligible to go and compete for the draft and all that. And now he plays football in Germany for a few $100s a month. So, you have to look at the narrative of how the NCAA treats the athletes, especially minority students, especially black students. It's literally, they literally own these students. Literally. You're not allowed to better yourself. They're allowed to make millions and millions off of your talents. And then there's no guarantee you're even going to make it to the pros. And so I think that's another conversation to be had as far as the follow-up with what happens with a lot of these student athletes who have made millions for their school, and then maybe they don't make the draft or they don't make whatever, or they have an injury, so they're no longer eligible, and they're kind of just dumped off and forgotten. And you know, a lot of them deal with depression, and even in that same documentary, one of the people ended up in the psych ward because they ended up injured and they were done. And you know, if your whole life you've been taught and told you were going to be the next great Michael Jordan or the Dennis Rodman or Sean Kemp or Gary Payton, and that's been your whole life, and then towards the end of your senior year of college, when you're ready to go to the draft, you discover you have an injury and you can barely walk. And now everything you've worked hard for, at least since you were 12 or 13, you know, everything you've known, your entire existence, that entire experience of walking out into that arena and there's 20,000 people who think you're the greatest thing in the world, and your face and your image is on the different video games that they make, and even though they've actually had to stop doing that, and you have posters and everything, and then all of that ends overnight, and you're just dropped off, and the school moves into the next phase, and they go and bring in the new people, and you're not even, you know, you're just a distant memory. Like, that's something to have a conversation about. You know, there's a ton of people who are experiencing that, and you know, it's just absolutely crazy. Moving on, and by the way, if I was homeboy, I would tell them where they could go, unfortunately, but I don't know his situation, so I can't really tell him what to do. I'm not in those shoes, but you know, it's very insulting. Very insulting. It's pretty much saying they think black people are too stupid to be smart. Like, come on, man. And then we all see that Jeffrey Zeigler, who was the guy who shot at 14-year-old Brendan Walker. Remember, Brendan Walker was the kid, I think he overslept and missed the bus. And so he went to like a neighbor's house to try to get directions on how to get to his school. And then the neighbor's wife thought that Brendan was trying to break into the house. Mind you, he knocked on the door, rang the doorbell. And so the husband, Jeffrey Zeigler, comes out and shoots at him with like a freaking shotgun. Fortunately, he misses, and Brendan's able to run and get away. But we see that Jeffrey Zeigler just was sentenced to up to 10 years in jail, which, in my opinion, or in prison, I think is some nonsense. Because honestly, he should have gotten more time. Because that was an attempted murder charge, in my opinion. They charged him with one count of assault with intent to do great harm. I'm like, intent to do great harm with a shotgun, with a rifle? You don't survive from getting shot with one of those. And clearly, if the boy didn't know how to run, that boy would be dead. To me, that was an attempted murder charge. But you know, it is what it is. That's how people do things. This reminds me of the Renisha McBride case, because literally it's in the same area, because this is coming out of Michigan, and then right in that same Detroit area, you had Renisha McBride, who I think she got in a car accident and went to seek help, and then the guy shot her at the door when she went to help me and killed her, and I think he got a few years in prison as well. But you know, it just goes to show there's so many people who are just trigger happy, ready to kill any and everybody. And side note, to all of the publications that went out of their way to say that Brendan Walker was 6'2" or 6'4", we see what you were trying to do. We see that you indirectly were trying to justify why they would be afraid of him being at the door, which I'm like, see, this is a part of the problem here. You guys are, it's literally, you're passive with the racism, and you try to put in little subtle bits and elements of it and think it's okay. And I'm like, no, this is why we have the issues that we have, because now all of a sudden, black people aren't even allowed to be tall. Like, what was supposed to happen if he was my height? If he was 5'8", what was that supposed to do? Does that make it so, okay, maybe they wouldn't have been as afraid? Like, you're now making it illegal for black folks to even be tall. Like, we just can't do anything, can we? But, you know, I think that whole scenario is jacked up, and people kept trying to say, well, you know, he was fearful. You know, if somebody comes on your door and you don't know them, you know, anything can happen. So you come with the gun. I'm like, okay, so, you know, do y'all do that when the Girl Scouts come and ask you, do they want some cookies? You gonna shoot them too? You gonna shoot them with the Thin Mints? You know, when the Jehovah's Witnesses come and knock on your door, if you haven't closed the blinds and turned off the lights, you gonna shoot them too? You know what I mean? Like, on Halloween, you gonna shoot the kids, or you gonna give them that dusty candy corn? So save that argument. And so he definitely should have gotten more time. And honestly, I would have gave the wife some time too, because she tried it. Because she definitely heightened that situation to make it worse than what it really was. Because clearly he even explains it on like, no, I'm just trying to find, you know, how do I get to the school? And see, that's what happens when you can't even trust your neighbors anymore, because everybody is living in fear of everybody. And a lot of it comes from the images and stereotypes and generalizations that are put out about people. And that stuff has long-term effects. And so now you're witnessing it. There's no reason why a 14-year-old has to run for his life because he missed the school bus. You know, there's no justification. I mean, goodness, so much going on. And even the Kendrick Johnson case, I know you guys have heard about this story. Now, this was a story coming out of Georgia. And long story short, Kendrick Johnson, student at the school, he ends up being found dead inside the rolled-up wrestling mats. And this case has been going on for years. There have been multiple autopsies, and you know, they kept trying to say, you don't know, he somehow just ended up in there. He ran in there and died. And there's so many discrepancies with the case, because of course, you know, when they went and they did the autopsy, or a second autopsy, they discovered he had no organs. His body was stuffed with newspapers and everything like that. And so there's definitely some foul play. The school has always kind of, in my opinion, people at the school have been trying to cover this up and brush this off. And you know, the parents were found liable in a different situation, or not found liable, but when they sued, they lost their case, and then they had to actually pay the legal fees for the people that they sued. And so there's been another autopsy, and now the autopsy is showing that yes, there was foul play. He has some kind of blunt force trauma to the face or to the forehead, to the head, and everything like that, which would explain why, if you've seen the picture of his body, which I'm not gonna post, it's very reminiscent of Emmett Till. Like, he literally, I don't know who hit him with what, but my theory is somebody, either it was a fight and the kid hit him too hard and didn't realize he was going to be dead and then stuffed him in there, or somebody hit him with something, but he definitely got hit by something. And the fact that there's no sympathy for the family, I think, is the most discouraging part. There's no sympathy. The parents have been put out there to be aggressors. The parents have been put out there to be liars. The parents have been put out there to be people who are overdramatic. And they're really trying to tell these parents that their son just randomly crawled inside of a wrestling mat and died, was goofing off, didn't know how to stop playing, and he climbed to the mat and died. And so the kids, or whoever actually did the crime, no accountability. You know, they're probably in their third year of college, probably getting ready to go to law school. You know, they'll probably have a court seat or a judge seat in the court system 30 years from now. You know, they're living their best life, probably going to go and get engaged in 2 or 3 more years, start family, get the white picket fence. And then you have the Johnson family, who's in mourning because they can't figure out what happened to their son. And at this point, the school district and everybody, they're not even really cooperating, because this is 3 years ago. They're trying to brush this under the table, move on to the next. That's literally where they're at. And so it's ridiculous. And listen, the truth will come out eventually, hopefully. We hope it does. But there's definitely some foul play with that. And I think it's foul that the family had to pay that money back. It was like $300,000 in legal fees that they've been ordered to pay back. You know, your child dies at school. Something doesn't add up. You take it to court. You lose. And now you have to pay the legal fees of something. You know, just the whole country. Can we put the whole country in rice? Just push a refresh button. Can we start over? Dang, my goodness. But to close out on the last 2 things, I have been following the fires in California, and it's crazy because last time I checked, the count was like close to 70 people were dead. There's 1,000 people that are still unaccounted for. Like, that is, absolutely crazy. And it goes to show you, like, you never know exactly how your day and your life can change in like the matter of minutes. Because from what I was reading, that town called Paradise or whatever, I'm not even going to talk about the history of that town, but, you know, pretty much the people felt they had literally no warning, no notice. They literally found out, and within hours they had to be out, and many of them didn't make it out in time. And even with the other fires further south, you know, that has to be a really scary thing. If you've seen the videos that people have posted with them trying to drive and get out, that's traumatizing. Many people died in their cars because it's a fearful thing. You're driving this vehicle through, you know, a street, and all the trees are on fire, and there's flames and everything falling. And of course, you have a car that has oil and gasoline and antifreeze and all these things that can just blow up, and you have to literally just pray to God that you make it out, and pray to God you don't suffocate from the smoke before you get there. Like, that is a very scary experience. So, you know, best wishes to everybody affected by that. And I want to close with Kim Porter. I can't imagine being a child and losing my mother, especially right before the holidays. That's tough. Because, you know, she has 3 children. And Kim Porter, I think the other thing I kind of had a beef with is that she was always just portrayed as just Diddy's, the mother of his children, with a lot of the articles that came out. But she had her own career. She was very pivotal in a lot of the things associated with the music industry, even things from her work with Uptown Records and the fashion industry. You know, she was a big name. So I just would hope that people, you know, give her a little bit more respect than just being the mother of Diddy's children. She is that, but she's more than that. She's that in addition to all the other things she's been able to accomplish. And, you know, it's really sad. And from what I read, you know, they found her in a house. So that meant that, you know, she died alone. And I think with parents, one of their biggest fears, especially for parents who are terminally ill or who know that they're not going to live long, a lot of times their biggest fear is that their kids are going to be okay. That's what they worry about. They just hope that the kids will be okay. They hope that because it's like, I'm not going to be there to get the Band-Aids anymore. I'm not going to be there, you know, to help you pick your prom outfit on or outfit out. And, you know, I'm not going to be there to drop you off at college and make sure you're good. I'm not going to be there when you call at 3 a.m. To cry because you done failed whatever exam and now you think your whole life is a failure and you're going to get kicked out of college. You know, all of that they take into consideration. And that has to be tough. That's a really scary thing. And it's crazy that you're seeing so many high caliber celebrities who are dying from, you know, different things that you would think would be able to be fixed. Because, you know, she had been back and forth with the doctor and she still ended up, because I think they said she had pneumonia, which is not fun at all. I had walking pneumonia last year. That crap, my God. And I had walking pneumonia and a partially collapsed lung. And that, God. So, it's sad that she wasn't able to be helped in the way that she should have been helped. That's jacked up. And even when you read the stories with Serena and everything that she went through as far as childbirth, I'm like, this is crazy. Like, clearly there's a conversation to be had about, the discrepancies in healthcare when it comes to Black Americans, and even when they're wealthy. But it's absolutely sad, and I think that's tough for even Diddy. That's the mother of his children. And like I said, it's tough when anybody loses a parent. I lost my father, but at least I lost him when I was in my mid-20s, as opposed to being 13 or 14, or that's. So that really struck a nerve. That it was so unexpected, and it just goes to show you never know how your life may change. That's why you really should just live in the moment, and never take for granted those around you, because they may not be here tomorrow. Who knows? That person that you're beefing with, that you're extremely close to, and y'all are beefing over something petty, they may not even be here tomorrow, or you may not be here tomorrow. So it's kind of like you really have to live in that moment and make sure that the things that you're holding on to and the grudges that you hold and that you have, that they're not just rooted in something very fickle, because time is not really promised to anybody. And it's crazy. Like, I really feel bad for the kids. Like, I keep thinking about those twins, and even the oldest son. Just like, it's right before the holiday. Literally, Thanksgiving is next week, and then Christmas is in a month. And so for them, every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, they're gonna be reminded that this is the time their mom died. That's crazy. But anyway, I am out. Share your 2 cents, subscribe.